Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. And after a long hiatus, we are now back to the ToQger VLOGS series. And so picking up from where we were last time, today we're going to go ahead and talk about Station 12, the Rainbow Commuter Pass, which is kind of an odd title. Some translations say the Rainbow Ticket, which sounds a lot better, but I think the proper translation is indeed the Commuter Pass. So this episode picks up directly from the last one. Basically, the lamp shadow has done something to ToQger, which we actually find out in this episode has put them under a form of hypnosis. And what it is that Zet, the Emperor of Darkness, has basically said, we're going to do an experiment on the ToQger. And that experiment is to separate them from each other to find out what makes them sparkle, in the words of the lamp shadow. And basically what it seems like Zet's trying to do is figure out what makes them unique, what makes them special, what makes them sparkle that other people don't seem to have, or at least that's the impression I get from the previous episode that we had when he points out that the ToQger and their mecha all sparkle, but he doesn't seem to make that comment about anybody else other than inanimate objects such as the balloon. So we have the ToQger all split up. The right basically is looking for them, and they're all under hypnosis and in different jobs throughout the city where they don't remember their past, which is something they already know. They remember right, but they don't remember being ToQger or anything about the rainbow line, and we'll get to a little bit of that logic here in a second. But ultimately what the episode ends up telling us is that what makes a ToQger sparkle, and this is just from my perception because it's a little hard to kind of understand, but I think as we go along, I might be right in this, but what it is it's their friendship is that what makes them sparkle. That it is the bonds of friendship that keep them together, that makes them sparkle, that makes them special, in addition to their imagination. If I had to say they were going to create a greater power for the ToQger, if they ever do ToQger keys, of course, other than imagination, which is the obvious default, friendship seems to be the secondary element to this. Because what happens is, as the other ToQger are in their other jobs and they don't know what's going on, they suddenly have a manifestation of the club pass that they had as children, and that reminds them of their friendship and brings them all together towards the end of the episode. So that's the bare bones of the episode. Nothing particularly remarkable. We put the Red Ranger into a situation where he has to try to unite the team, and in essence he kind of fails at that. He realizes what it is that brings them together and the importance of the Rainbow Pass, but it's the other Rangers on their own that come to this realization and they come to rescue him at the end. So Wright being put in this position, it's a little bit odd that he doesn't actually resolve it. He does figure it out, but nothing really becomes of his character in that regard. We have a continuation on the subplot with Greta, which I'm sure that's how we pronounce it. The episode I was actually watching had her in the spelling and the subtitles as glitter, which actually would work with what Zet is doing and so forth, and his obsession with light and things that sparkle, but I do believe it's Greta. It's probably just something weird with the translation. Nevertheless, she has run away, and interestingly enough, towards the end of the episode, she attempts to kill Zet. That she can't go through with the marriage, so instead of running away, which was plan A, or killing herself, which historically is what some brides would go ahead and do with planned marriages in Korea, Japan, China, and other Asian countries. I mean, there's a whole thing about suicides of Japanese brides. She doesn't elect to do that, but rather she wants to kill Zet. Because she shows up with a dagger, and she's only thwarted by General Schwartz in this moment. And a lot of things really happen, which actually I believe what happens here with the three villains is far more interesting than what's happening with the ToQger. And I'll get to a little bit more of that here in a moment when I talk about the logic of the situation. But in this moment, we have Greta trying to kill Zet, Zet realizing that she's his bride, and not so much falling in love with her, but accepting her, and General Schwartz coming to the realization that Greta might actually love him, because she's held on to his handkerchief this entire time. Although he does pick it up off the ground, and that's contrary to what he said when he originally dropped it. Greta was able to get a hold of it, where he says he doesn't pick anything off the ground. So you're already violating your own continuity right there, and so far the series has been pretty good about the continuity. But where this leads into next episode is going to be rather interesting, whether she is accepting, whether she still tries to go ahead and kill them, kill Zet, what Schwartz is going to do about this perceived love triangle, I think, that's going on, and of course Zet's reaction to everything here. Because Zet, and I will still stand by this from last episode, I really like this character, and he's not so much trying to destroy the ToQger. Even in this episode, he's really trying to find out what makes them tick, what makes them unique and special, and he still hasn't been able to really kind of figure that out. So he's really fascinated by the ToQger, and even though he has that line that says, you know, do you sparkle even when you die, he doesn't really have a good friendship with Wright or any other ToQgers, but he respects them and admires them. And I think it's coming around to that he knows the light and dark. He knows that dichotomy. He knows that he has to defeat them if darkness is going to take over. But I do think there's a little bit of hesitation in Zet simply because of how he is fascinated by the light. Even when we have him reintroduced in the episode, he goes to the Dark Station and talks with General Schwartz and the others. He has this little stage show going on with all these flashing lights, and everybody's like, what the heck is going on? The Baron is like mystified. I think it's a very well done scene, has great camera movement in there, and the time and the reaction of the Baron when he drops his cane, it's all hilarious. It's very well done, but it doesn't undercut the seriousness of the situation, where, again, I eventually believe there may be some sort of rebellion from the forces of darkness to Zet. Again, that's just a theory that I have at present. Now let's get into some details of the episode and things I just wrote down that don't really particularly make sense. Let's talk about the rainbow passes themselves. So we're getting more information into their background, particularly when they built the secret clubhouse and they came with the little pass cards to allow admission. And I guess that's a Japanese thing because no clubhouse I was ever part of as a kid ever did that. But that is pretty cool. And basically the idea is that, you know, that they will always help each other and the club must be kept a secret. It's basically the things that bind the club together. What's interesting about this, though, is that these cards somehow, and I'm not quite sure how, become the passes for the ToQger. They're buckle passes that allows them access onto the train. Now, what's interesting about that is, if we apply the rules of the club to the ToQger, first of all, it says must be kept a secret, which is why the trains are invisible, and that they must help each other, which is why they are a team. So something about the club cards, something about their imagination, their bonds as children has led them to become ToQger. What that is exactly, we still have to go ahead and find out, but that's a nice symmetry that we have going on of what happened when they were children and what that means now that they are ToQger. And of course, they got a little bit more clues and help in finding where they are. It's about the clubhouse, things we kind of already knew, but we have this establishment of what the cards say and how that is tied into them being ToQger, howbeit briefly. I don't want to get into too much speculation, but there isn't much to go on at this particular time. A little bit of a logic question that I have, because Ticket says at the beginning of the episode, so the Lamp Shadow puts the hypnosis spell on the 4 ToQger. Curiously enough, if you actually go back and watch Station 12 and Station 11, you will see that Wright is affected by the dark light at the same time as the others, yet he is not affected. I don't know if that was a technical issue with the special effects department, they didn't know the right thing to do, or if it was a story thing that was changed from episode 11 to 12. It's just an interesting fact to point out. But the ToQger and the town itself, seen to also be under hypnosis, have lost their imagination, and the Shadow Line's been able to go ahead and take over. That being said, they can't board if they can't see us, is exactly what Ticket says. And what it's implying is those without imagination, so basically adults and so forth, cannot see the train, but children can because they're full of imagination. This is territory we've already been over. But that leads me to ask this question, which I only thought of when this episode came up, is that if the villains are able to see the trains, then does that mean that they have an abundance of imagination? Because if that is indeed the case, then what does that say about the villains and the imagination, the power of imagination, and the dichotomy between darkness and imagination, and darkness and light, and so forth? What is the relationship between those three forces that allows the villains to actually see the train, but follow the path of darkness as opposed to the path of light, which a ToQger follow, and one can argue those with imagination like children follow, because I don't necessarily believe that children follow a dark path, if you know what I mean. So, interesting logic there, and again, it plays into, can civilians see the Zord battles and so forth, and how does the train, actually work on track when other trains are there and so forth. So, a couple of logical questions brought up. What's even more interesting in terms of logic is the hypnosis spell that is placed on the ToQger by Lamp Shadow. Now, basically what happens is that they are put into hypnosis, and then they are put into the real world, in which they are themselves, but they are not themselves. So, for example, under this hypnosis, Mio is a police officer. Takachi, who I finally looked up to katakana on that, is Takachi, so that's how I'm going to pronounce his name. He's a middle management, looks like office worker. Hikari, the Green Ranger, he is a student at the university, looks like in engineering. And Kagura is a model. So the idea was to split them up and kind of rob them of their memories of ToQger to see how they would, I guess, unite, work, see if they would still sparkle. Now, the problems I have with this is, one, they don't have their memories beyond becoming ToQger. That's already apparent. So we're eliminating those further memories of being ToQger to where essentially the person you have is a complete blank slate at this point. And the only thing that they can remember off the bat is knowing right and knowing their jobs. So what was the point of further memory erasing is what I'd like to have, because they're nobodies at this point, but in these positions where they don't know anything. So Takachi is working at the office. I'm sure somebody's going to ask, hey, what'd you do today? Does he have a home that he's going to? But also keep in mind, this is something that's happened within several hours or less since the Shadow Lamp, or Lamp Shadow, put the spell on them. And let's actually talk about their careers right here. And that's what they are, careers. Because Mio is a police officer. So how in the short amount of time between being affected and being a beat cop in a car, which she has a car, she has a badge, she has a ticket book, how is she able to do that? How did the Lamp Shadow's hypnosis allow her to be a police officer on the force within a couple of hours? And then let's take a look at Hikari. How is he a student at the university with access to a laboratory like that? I mean, I was at school for 4 years and I didn't have access to any type of laboratory until I was a senior. So are we implying that he has falsified student records? That he has an ID pass to get him in there? Not to mention, he seems to be working on an existing experiment. So what experiment it was invented for him to be working on? And Kagura, she's working as a model. Well, who set up that photography session? Because somebody in at least the photography portions to be like, where did this girl come from? We just hired her a couple of hours ago. And then again, it's with modeling, but when we talk about Takachi at the office work, well, he's working on something. People know him, they address him, they know he's coexisting with people in the office. Where's his W-2 or the Japanese equivalent of that? How did he get hired? Is he the new guy? I mean, if the Lamp Shadow made an artificial reality in which they existed, I could believe that. That makes sense. We've seen pocket dimensions, we've seen holographic simulations, all that stuff kind of makes sense. But what this episode is implying is that they actually got these jobs within a few hours, and it's like they totally already existed within that space. Mio, especially, as a police officer, which we know has to take months or years of training, and again, I assume the same is going to be in Japan. I don't think it would be any different. If anything, it would be better, given what this country's had recently. Moving on. How did she get on the force and get certified to do all this? Did she just appear out of nowhere, and does the Lamp Shadow affect other people's memories? Because we know he's obviously affecting the town somehow since they took over and removed imagination from everybody. But does that mean he's also created artificial memories for other people And even when we talk about artificial memories, so are we saying that he's created artificial memories for Mio in becoming a police officer? Now, if that is the case, he is actually helping the ToQger, because consider this for a second. Mio has no memories of her childhood and no memories of being a ToQger. Then she's implanted with memories of being a police officer, and let's assume she keeps those memories when she regains her memories of a ToQger. Not only does she have contradictory information of what she's been doing with her life, but she's gained information viable to being a police officer. Meaning she's probably learned combat skills. She's probably learned, police things, how to work certain firearms and all that. Basically what I'm saying is, you've given her further knowledge she did not have before. Hikari is the same way. Takashi and Kagura, their memory is not going to be helpful, but, I mean, what Hikari, is able to use whatever it was he was working with to utilize that down the line, some sort of scientific knowledge that he has gained. Now, we can't discount the fact that when they actually gain their memories back about being children growing up, that they might learn something else. But it seems that the Lamp Shadow, if that is the case, has given them a tactical advantage down the line. We don't know, and the episode doesn't seem to bother with that, nor does the episode bother with how they got into these jobs, which is the main failing of the episode. Because you could have done this a million other ways, but you put them into jobs in normal civilian mode without explaining how they got there, and we're just supposed to accept that Mio is a police officer, that Kagura is a model now, that Takashi's working in an office. I mean, again, within a span of a couple of hours of being affected by this, all this is happening. And now that they're gone, I mean, does anybody know that they're missing? Were they ever really there? It doesn't really make any sense. So that's the biggest issue I have with this episode, just because, well, it doesn't make any sense. Let's see, what else did we have in here? Okay, this was the first introduction of the ToQger, which is just the combination of all the mechas they have now. Nothing really special. I don't think it was as grand of an introduction as, some other mechas that we've seen in the past. Typically it's like a big deal. This really isn't a big deal. It's just, Wright's like, hey, let's do this, and it happens, and then that's kind of the end of it. Again, it's not like, say, when the Tiger Zord first appeared and we got to see it in battle, or any other mecha for that reason. It just kind of like comes in, and I actually had to think about it. I was like, is this the first time we've seen it? Just because it really wasn't that astonishing of an appearance, and really wasn't met with a lot of fanfare there. Oh, and Lamb Shell makes the greatest point in this series up to this point. He basically says, what is the point of this color change? To which the answer is given, to beat you. No, that's not the answer. What is the point of the color change? Seriously, we haven't got a sufficient answer for that. So I applaud Lamp Shadow or the writer, whoever came up with that line, to put it in there, because that's the series in a nutshell. What's the point of this color change? So yeah, that's pretty much Station 12 that we have. I look forward to seeing what happens next. Again, I really want to know what's going on with the villains. We've had all these filler episodes where not much is happening, but I think we're getting on the right track to where main plots are going to start conforming, and things are going to go ahead and happen. And yes, I know I'm very much behind, but now that I've graduated college, I'll have a lot more time to view these and do these videos for you guys. Anyway, that's Station 12. Join me next time as we go to Station 13. And you guys have a good night. And the tavern is now closed.